Hello, everybody. Hello out there, Facebook land. Hope you're all having a good day out there. We've got some pretty exciting news that just came out about Canadian immigration. So we are here to bring that news to you. You may recognize me. I am Dane Stewart, one of the content developers here at Moving to Canada, and I am joined today by Moving to Canada's editor, Mr. Hugo O'Doherty. How are you doing today, Hugo?
Great. Yeah, it's a lot of news and it makes me feel good, ready to share it with the world.
Yeah, so we just had Canada come out with the immigration levels plan for the years 2021, so starting next year up to the year 2023. And this is usually what the Canadian government does, correct? They release 3-year plans.
I think this is the third such plan in a row. Previously, it was annual plans, but they've taken a sort of a medium-term view now, which is great, really.
Yeah, it gives us a bit of
Uh,
an idea of the long term approach, which makes sense because immigration is such a long term strategy in Canada's economic development and outside of the economy too.
Dane, you're burying the lead here. Tell the people the news.
Okay,
Big, big, big
we have the
immigration.
biggest. It's the biggest immigration levels plan that we've ever seen Canada release. It's 1.2, more than 1.2 new permanent residents will be
0.2 million. They're not going to chop.
Yeah, more than 1.2 million new permanent residents over the next 3 years. That's a massive number. The previous plans we've seen, the last two plans, they were able to knock it up over a million, but this is a really big increase. Hugo, can you break down for our viewers maybe why Canada has increased the targets so high? It might seem like a weird time to do that.
Yeah, so like regardless of the ongoing pandemic, which if you're tuning in from around the world, I hope you're staying safe and healthy and you're outside Canada. Um, the Canadian government has been clear over recent years that it perceives immigration not just in terms of the short term of people's ability to fill labor and skills shortages, but that immigrants help Canada offset the inevitable declining birth rates and demographic challenges that come from that, and that immigrants help support public programs such as those around healthcare and pensions, etc. And that basically Canada needs to have population growth in order to support public programs and to build a critical mass of people inside the country, a consumer base, etc. So there's lots of there's lots of factors that go into these decisions, and Canada sort of takes a more longer term view than some other peer countries around the world. So, regardless of the pandemic, the government is optimistic, that will end, certainly within this
I
3
think
year
we're all
period, but it
optimistic
won't
about
have,
that.
yeah, yeah, we're confident. Um, and therefore, like the country can't really afford to take its foot off the gas with respect to its medium to long term vision of what immigration means to the country. So it's really great to see that the government is sort of doubling down on what it needs, what the country needs over a longer period, and not sort of giving into some perhaps legitimate concerns that immigration might not be a wise idea in the short term. Um, the Canadian government's making clear that it's a strong and it's strong for the country, it's strong for the economy in the short, medium, and long term. So, yeah, but I'll be honest, Dane, I didn't expect to see 1.2, 1.3 million as the target over 3 years. I thought it would be around 1.1 or
Mm-hmm.
1.1 million. So it's even higher than I expected. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we'd been
that's
looking over the past couple of years. It had been looking as though Canada was ramping up to arrive at 350,000 or so new permanent residents every year. And this year they really just blew that target out of the water, and they bumped it right up to above 400,000. So that's a really big increase for the plan. The last plan, which was released in March of this year, it was about 6 months ago that the last plan was released, and they've really bumped up the targets in the meantime. And Hugo, I mean, you really hit that point home of how important important and crucial immigration is to, the sustained long-term growth of Canada's economy. But one of the cool things that we saw in this plan as well is that Canada has really illustrated a commitment to immigration for reasons outside of just the economic value as well. So we saw in
Yeah.
this plan increased targets for family sponsorship, increased targets
Mm.
for refugees and humanitarian claims. So it's not just like Canada saying, okay, we're going gung ho just for the sake of the economy. They are really taking a nice, well rounded approach to the many pronged benefits that a big immigration
Y-
strategy can have.
Yeah, and in addition to that, um, sorry, like the country, like they don't just see economic immigrants as being beneficial to the economy. They also see those family class immigrants and refugees as economic actors. So, like, if I'm sponsoring a spouse or if I'm a refugee, I can open a business. I'm a permanent resident. I can make an extremely valuable contribution to Canada's economy. It's not just the skilled workers who make that contribution. So Canada's been very clear on that, and they've got the data to back it up that refugees aren't like net takers from, Canadian born people. They also open businesses and provide jobs, etc. So it's great to see that Canada is making that point clear and making it in a measured way backed up by data.
Mm-hmm. And I've just pulled open our reporting on the immigration levels plan. You can see we've got a table with all of the targets laid out for the next 3 years, broken down by different economic immigration programs, family class immigration programs, and refugee-based immigration programs. So you can see we're highlighting, our faces are kind of covering the columns for 2022, 2023, but you can see right there pretty clearly the targets for at least the next year. Hugo, can you tell people a bit more about, like, we gave a really big number. It's 1.2 million over 3 years, or 400,000 plus a year.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break this down a bit further for our viewers? Which types of immigration programs are these immigrants coming through?
Yeah, so I'll just rattle through some of the highlights. I mean, people will probably be familiar with Express Entry, a lot of viewers, what that is and what that means. So the big takeaway on Express Entry is rising targets over the next 3 years, going from about 108, 109,000 next year to just under 114,000 by 2023. Never in any of these plans previously, Dane, in the history of Express Entry, has the annual target been above 100,000. And that's going to be different now over the next few years. They're adding on thousands upon thousands of new admissions through Express Entry over the next 3 years, which is brilliant. Express Entry has been just such a, I mean, I know it might be frustrating for many candidates who are attempting to get their invitation or even trying to get their applications through, but the government released a report just a few weeks ago showing the types of benefits that the country is experiencing as a result of the introduction of Express Entry about half a decade ago. And it's just great that more people from around the world will have the opportunity to apply through that program, the expedited processing and everything that comes with it. So we're looking at big Express Entry targets over the next 3 years. And then people might be familiar with provincial nominee programs as well. Similar story, 80 to 85,000 targets every year, 80 to 84,000, excuse me. The range for next year, there's sort of a wider range there. It might be lower into the 60s or 70,000s per year. So Express Entry and PNPs take up the lion's share of the economic programs. But there's also a couple of cool new programs that are getting more involved. You've got the Atlantic Pilot, you've got the Rural and Northern program, you've got an agri-food program. I mean, put together, that's tens of thousands of new immigrants over the next 3 years. So people should really look to become familiar with those programs as well, especially if Express Entry or PNPs are perhaps difficult to navigate for them. These other programs exist as well, and they are bringing in tens of thousands of people over the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So then we've also got the family class, spouses, partners, and dependent children. And the parent and grandparent program. Higher targets for parent and grandparents, as we revealed recently that those admissions would be going up. And then you've got refugees and protected persons abroad. This is great to see, honestly. Like, Canada has built a reputation over many decades of having a relatively welcoming attitude to refugees and asylum seekers, especially compared to some other peer developed countries.
No names named.
And no names named, yeah, exactly. And the private sponsorship of that, which Canada really was sort of, um, you know, brought that to the world's attention decades ago, and some other countries have sort of mimicked it over time. There's going to be around 22,500 people coming in through that process annually. So overall, yeah, each year overall immigration above 400,000. The government has sort of built in a lower range possibility, closer to 300,000. I think this is me freelancing a bit, Dane, but I think that is a nod to the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic and how its effects might, be dragged out into 2021 and hopefully not beyond, but throughout the year. And we'll see what admissions look like, because as we both know, and as many people know, admissions have been lower this year than
Right.
expected, or at least planned. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at this as well. Is they've really given themselves a big range for these targets, bigger than usual.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, it's impossible for us to know for sure without asking someone at IRCC. But I was wondering if that might be factoring in the uncertainty created by the pandemic. I'm just going to give our viewers a couple of resources to research some of these programs that you mentioned. If you are watching this and you do have questions about anything that we're going over, drop them in the comments. Now is your chance. We got a couple minutes left, and if you have any questions, we'll try to take them at the end. But Hugo did mention express entry having massive targets, these really, really big targets for the express entry system over the next couple of years. If you're unfamiliar with express entry, I'm going to advise you that you sign up for our express entry roadmap. It's right, I've just pulled open the page here. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, I'll pop a link in the description down there. So this is a free email education service. All you have to do is give us your email. We'll send you one lesson a day for a week that'll teach you the foundations of express entry. So that's a really great free resource to build your foundational knowledge there. And the other resource I'm going to pull up is our live tracker for provincial nominee programs. Hugo mentioned there are more than 80 PNP streams. That's a lot. You can use our PNP live tracker tool to filter through the various PNPs that might be options for you based on things like which province are they located in, does it require a job, if you say yes, it's going to filter, does it require Canadian work experience, that sort of thing. So it's quite a powerful tool to determine what provincial options might look like for you. Just heading back to the immigration levels plan, you can see there are very high provincial nominee program targets over the next 3 years. The target for next year, for example, is above 80,000 through PNP
Yeah.
streams. That's massive.
Yeah. Can I just add to that as well, Dane? I was just looking at the annual report on immigration that also came out today, just before we came on, and the the um the number of people arriving in some provinces through express entry and PMPs is really different. Like, as in Ontario, for example, Ontario is getting huge number of express entry admissions, but in some of the prairie provinces like Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and then some of the provinces in Eastern Canada, most economic immigrants actually come through
Mm-hmm.
those provincial programs. So, like, it's not all like Canada is not just Ontario, and express entry is not just all of immigration. There's a lot more to Canada, and there's a lot more to the immigration programs, and people really need to become familiar with the country as a whole if they're not so already, and with the policy programs as a whole, because this is the best way to, frankly, have a great life here in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
is to figure that all out.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Our team is now spread all across the country. I mean, you're in Montreal. I'm on the East Coast in Nova Scotia. We just interviewed one of our recommended consultants, Jenny, on the West Coast earlier this week. And there's just
Yeah,
all of these provincial options or federal immigration programs for these different locations. It can be very confusing, but hopefully, if you leverage some of these resources we outlined, you might be able to find out some options that might be good for you. Um,
I have a question for you, Dan, which is, like, if people look at this as a 1, 2, or 3 year plan for themselves and their families and their career goals, what can they do to prepare now? Considering the state of the world, the state of what might be available locally in terms of language testing, what could people do
I
today
mean,
to sort of profit from this
I
plan?
think the most important thing that you can do for your immigration process is inform yourself. I think that information is empowerment when it comes to Canadian immigration. Like we said, there are so many different immigration pathways. Figure out the one that's the best option for you. And that's going to take some research. It's going to take you reading through these guides that we have on our website, maybe booking a consultation with an immigration consultant. There are different ways that you can research, but the first and most important thing is to identify what immigration pathway you're going to come through. If you choose, for example, to come through express entry, which is this very competitive economic immigration system, you're going to need things like language test results. So you're going to need to be tested in English and or French. So if you don't, if English or French aren't your first language, you can take some time and prepare ahead now. Start working on those skills. If you, for example, if you can learn French, the government just announced this week even more points available through the express entry scoring system for
Yeah.
French speakers. So if you plan ahead, you take some time learning French from scratch. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. So the informing yourself as far in advance as possible empowers you to know what you need to do to give yourself the best chances. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest recommendation to people.
And a good start there would be to create a Moving to Canada account, quite frankly. We've got all those resources, but we do have a large website, and sometimes it might be tricks that you need. If you create your account, we'll get to know you. You tell us a little bit about you, and we'll get the resources to you by
Yeah.
email, based on your profile. So
So you
I'm sure we'll pop that in the comments
Yeah,
or
I'm
whatever
putting
we need
I
to
just
do.
put the registration link for the account in the comments right now. I've pulled it up
And if
and
you're
I'm
watching on YouTube later, it'll be in the description.
Yes, so you're getting to know this process so well, Hugo. You know how it all works now. And I pulled up that page, the account registration page, so you can see kind of what you get. You get our free getting started guide, you get resume templates, cover letter templates, and those free email education roadmaps like the express entry roadmap that I mentioned. It's all free, guys. It's free. If you haven't signed up, what are you doing? Sign up. Come
Yeah.
on.
Dan, I think it's interesting that like this isn't the first significant news story we've had this week, and you referenced it just there. The government, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday of this week, introduced or at least published its announced that it was now giving extra points for French speakers in the express entry pool. And I think if you're sitting in the pool and you have some knowledge of French, or you've got some space in your diary over the coming months and want to increase your points by up to 74 additional points, although reaching that would be difficult. That's basically fluency, but 50 is attainable. 50, 60. If you see higher targets, that will place some downward pressure on the CRS score. And then if you see the increasing points for French speakers, that might place some upward pressure, but it's also an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is in if you see rising targets over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, then it gives you a sort of a roadmap to success. You're like, okay, there's this many people, and this is something I can do to increase my score. It's not the only thing you can do to increase your score, but it's one potential option. And if you see it as like, all right, I can be one of those people, even though I'm not being invited today. I wasn't invited 2 weeks ago. I wasn't invited 4 weeks ago, whenever the draws were. This is a big opportunity. It's not impossible to learn French. I did it not for express entry, but for immigrating to Quebec. It was really difficult. I had to make some sacrifices, and I failed the exam 3 times before I passed it. But it is possible, and it's a big opportunity for people. And yeah, it's things are changing, and people should be optimistic and have confidence if of immigrating to Canada at some point in the next couple of years, especially with these big targets.
Yeah, and as Hugo said, create your Moving to Canada account so you can track all those changes. We just referenced that change to Express Entry that happened earlier this week. There are also 2 new programs announced by Alberta. Quebec announced 3 immigration programs. There was some news that came out about International Experience Canada. We had these immigration targets come out today. This is all just in the last 72 hours. It's been a busy week over here at Moving to Canada. So create your profile, and we'll keep you up to date on all of the latest immigration news, and we will help you plan the immigration process. Again, that link is in the comments section here on Facebook or in the description on YouTube. Is there anything else we have to cover here today, Hugo?
No, maybe there's an interesting question we can deal with before we hop off. I don't know.
We had a question come in from Abby Menu asking about the chances for express entry. So he or she or they have a CRS score of 468 points. We get questions like this quite frequently.
Yeah.
Is the CRS score cutoff for express entry going to drop below a certain points threshold in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months? So Hugo, 468. What are his chances, or hers, or theirs?
Um, Abby's chances are decent, but certainly not guaranteed. We've seen the CRS threshold bounce in the 470 to 475 range for some time now. And there are some new factors that go into that going potentially up or down. So we don't know. I'll give an example. There's a longer than usual gap right now between the most recent express entry draw and the next one. Um, that will allow more people to enter the pool and more people who are already in the pool to increase their score, which might lead the score to go up in the next draw. But also, where there might be reasons for it to come down over the coming draws, such as rising targets or provinces having, not consistently issued nominations potentially over the recent months, and maybe there'll be fewer people or more nominated and getting those 600 extra points, for example. There are lots of things. If I was on 468 and I had an opportunity to increase my score, for example, by retaking a language test and potentially increasing my scores there, or maybe some medium term goals like learning French or completing a study program, I'd be looking into those. I wouldn't just be sitting in the pool hoping that it comes down to 468, because there's certainly no guarantee of that, even though it has been below that in the past. This is a system that is becoming more popular and therefore more competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, we had the extra points come in this week, so it'll likely inflate
Yeah,
it a little
yeah,
bit in the next draw.
that's another one. Yeah.
Yes, but definitely keep your eyes tuned to the Moving to Canada Facebook page. We don't know when the next express entry draw will take place now that they've broken the normal pattern for draws, so we are monitoring that as well. And you can trust that as soon as a draw happens, we will be reporting on it, and we will, of course, go live. So I think that's all that we're going to cover in today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Hugo, for joining me today. Always a pleasure.
Always.
And we hope that some of you out there are going to be able to take advantage of these incredibly high immigration targets, the 1.2 million new permanent residents, more than 1.2 million permanent residents that we should be seeing come to Canada within the next 3 years. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.